Warms my heart to say J.D. Vance at a rally on camera says Jesus is king. This just a couple days after Kamala Harris being at a rally in which someone says, Jesus is Lord. And she says, you're at the wrong rally. You need to go to the smaller rally down the street. And what has this told Christians in just the last 4 days? Kamala Harris, if you say Jesus is Lord, Kamala Harris is pushing you out. She doesn't want you in her party. She doesn't want you voting for her. She doesn't want you at your rally or her rally. She wants you down the street at the rally of Donald Trump. Well, in the latest rally with J.D. Vance, someone shouts out, Jesus is king, and he says, Christ is king. Let's take a look at that video. Here it is.
Approach to public policy. I don't think that we've, that's right, Jesus is king, and I don't think that we've seen.
Crowd goes wild. Crowd goes wild. Let's hear it again.
I think that that's right, Jesus is king, and I don't think that we've seen. I don't think that we've seen anything like this in modern American politics.
Now, let's compare this to Kamala. I know I played it a couple days ago in case you weren't here for that live show. It was very popular. There's like over 300,000 people that watched that. But here is what Kamala says after her SNL skit, which was mocking Catholics. Here's a little bit of that. Let me just show you the SNL. This was lame. I mean,
anything that you think that maybe I shouldn't bring up tonight?
Well, don't lie. Thou shalt not bear false witness to thy neighbor.
Indeed, especially thy neighbor's election results.
Just so you know, there will be a fact checker there tonight.
Oh, that's great. Who?
Jesus.
You're so lame. Get out of my face. This is so lame. But here's Kamala for the wrong rally.
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally.
Look how smug she is. My goodness sake.
No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
Waving them off. Her attitude, her voice there is going to cost her the election because Christians are the biggest demographic in America. Catholics in particular are over 21 or 22% of Catholic voters. Over 70 million voters are Catholic. She made fun of Catholics during her video in FaceTime to the Al Smith dinner. Now J.D. Vance slapping back, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Can a presidential candidate win the office without confessing Christ as king? But the inverse is true as well, by belittling people who say Jesus is Lord. We're going to talk about today. I'll do the live chat, live comments. We got a lot to talk about. We're getting close to the election. All the swing states are turning red in the polls, both in the liberal polls, conservative polls, the betting odds. Everything is tipping towards Trump. And it looks like Kamala just keeps making mistakes. Well, she's not making mistakes. She's just revealing who she is. Before we get all that, today's episode, this portion of the episode is brought to you by The Wellness Company. And as you know, we've had some natural disasters. We've had some problems. And that's the new reality. From the Maui fires to record level hurricanes, we are seeing catastrophic disasters that are taking out entire towns in 24 hours with minimal warning, resulting in the lack of basic resources. And I get it. We're wired to think it won't happen to here. And then in a blink, you're in survival mode. Being prepared in advance is your best defense against the unexpected. And clearly, we can't rely on our government. The wellness company's emergency kits completely remove the gatekeeper and subside panic by providing you with personalized mini pharmacy in the convenience of your own home. So bacterial infections, staph infections, bite wounds, UTI, strep throat, respiratory illness, you no longer have to be at the mercy of someone else to help you. You keep a fire extinguisher handy for a fire, even though you don't think your house is going to burn down. So it's probably a good idea to have some basic medicines in place just in case you need them. Same mindset, but a different product. So go to the wellness company and get their emergency kit, all from the convenience of your couch. You fill out an intake form, a pharmacist reviews and approves it, and then you receive the kits in 2 weeks. The medical board approved guidebook crafted by Dr. Peter McCulloch tells you exactly what to do. This is preparedness simplified. Invest in your family's self-managed insurance plan. Order your emergency kit today at twc.health/Marshall and use the promo code Taylor to save up to 40% plus free shipping. That's TWC. You can see it on the screen right there. twc.health/Marshall. Use the promo code Taylor to save up to $40 off plus free shipping. This is for residents only. Also, you'll see the link in the show notes and in the pinned comment. Back to J.D. Vance. Now, you've heard me talk about J.D. Vance. I have had some concerns. I voiced them. Some people got angry with me and says, you can't say that, we're going to lose the election. And I said, no, I think if we voice as Christians, and I'm a Catholic, as a Catholic Christian, if we voice our concerns, I do believe they will be heard. And I have seen very positive transitions in the J.D. Vance campaign. Is it exactly where I would want it? No. Has it moved closer? Yes. That gives me comfort. And then to see a candidate to be the vice president say, yes, Jesus is king, publicly, on camera, days after Kamala running for president, mocking people, saying Jesus is Lord, and essentially saying, get out of my rally, you're not welcome here. Even though the Democrats say tolerance, everyone is conservative, every opinion matters, everybody's perspective is valid, there are no wrong lifestyles. And yet, if you say Jesus is Lord, you're cast out. You're thrown out. And this raises the question, is America a Christian country? I would argue that in our founding, even though most of the founding fathers professed to be Christians, and as a Catholic looking back and seeing the influence of secret societies and other problematic associations, I don't think our founding is a Christian founding, like you would say maybe about Catholic France, the Papal States, England before Henry VIII, where you have a true integration of church and state. And a lot of people in America think that that's really bad and we shouldn't go back to that. But I think what we've seen in the last 4 to 5 decades is Christianity pushed out of the public square and saying, you have no voice here. You shall not pass, as Gandalf said. And what I think a lot of Christians assumed is if we played nice and said, hey, we're going to be a tolerant society, we're not going to push our Christianity on society, then everybody will play fair. But what we found is as we made the public square neutral, as we made it a vacuum that was allegedly neutral on philosophy, morality, religion, belief system, what happened is a secular culture of promiscuity, degenerate behavior, policies, beliefs, laws against the dignity of human life, the dignity of matrimony, the importance of protecting children. All of that became unraveled. And now I think Christians in 2024 are thinking, we tried to be fair and have a neutral exchange of ideas, and you guys filled it. You say, oh, well, we're not religious, but these are all of our ideas, all of our opinions, all of our beliefs, and we are imposing them, on you, on the society. So much so that we have to go along with how you want to be referred to, even though we don't understand it or agree with it. We have to go along with lifestyle choices that we don't agree with. And even if we express a certain measure of tolerance and saying, but I still don't agree with it, we're called phobic. I think moving forward, and one of the great things about J.D. Vance saying Christ is King, and I'll play it again for you here in case you're coming in late. I think one of the great things about this is it shows that you can win an election, you can be tolerant. And by tolerant, I don't mean saying other people's worldviews are right. I can say to people, I think what you believe is wrong. I could even say, I believe what you believe is sinful. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to harm you or try to destroy you. So here's Vance again at this rally where he says Jesus is King.
Approach to public policy. I don't think that we've, that's right, Jesus is King, and I don't think that we've
seen. He's smiling, he's chill. It's great. It's great. Kamala looked sassy when she said, you need to go to the rally down the street. The non-Jesus is Lord. And this reveals that the Democratic Party is fundamentally anti-Christian. And if you just take the suffix off, the IAN, anti-Christian, what do you get? You get antichrist, right? And I've talked a lot on the podcast about the difference between something bad, something sinful, a person who's bad, a person who's sinful, and then further down the road, the person who is evil. Evil. And what's the difference there? So someone who has committed sin or someone who is bad, I think we can all relate to this in our lives. You know, whether it's certainly venial sins, even with mortal sins, you know, you want to live for God. You're on the path. You have the faith. You hope in Jesus Christ. And you do sinful things. And that's bad. I mean, you can end up in hell doing that. All right. But being evil is actually magnifying sin, promoting sin, seducing other people into sin, seducing children into sin, and poisoning the culture. All right. So this is satanic. Now, all sins, right, are a submission in some way to the world, the flesh, and the devil. But when you go out of your way to magnify the evil in the world with malice in your will, that is truly evil. If you agree with me, go ahead and like the video. Share the video on YouTube. Share the video on Facebook. Share the video on X, a.k.a. Twitter, and also on Rumble. My name is Dr. Taylor Marshall. Welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here. We talk about philosophy, theology. Sometimes we talk about politics. I'm a Catholic. I'm a Christian. This is the worldview I'm coming at, and I'm happy to share it with you. All right, I'm going to turn it over to the comments and your questions. I want to hear from you. And then I also want to hear specifically, I know there's people in my audience who say, you know what? Trump is not consistently pro-life. J.D. Vance is Catholic, but even he tips the hat to Trump's position, which is not 100% pro-life. Kamala is definitely not pro-life. So I'm sitting out. I'm not going to vote either way. Do things like J.D. Vance saying Jesus is king matter, or Kamala saying, if you believe Jesus is Lord, get out of my rally? Do those matter to you, or is it still, you still have the same position? I'm curious about that. And then I think some of you will probably say, well, this is just posturing. Do they really have these beliefs? Are they true believers, et cetera? Maybe this is all just political theater. So I want to hear from all of you on those topics, on the comments and the questions. I'll begin with the super chat. But before we do, this segment of the podcast is brought to you by Field of Greens. I use Field of Greens to get my vegetables, to get my fruits, and I eat a kind of a more high protein diet. And I was always looking for something that provided sourced, healthy, organic fruits, vegetables, etc. And Field of Greens hits that spot because they have doctors who are actually formulating the recipes. And my favorite, I keep it here with me, is the strawberry. Just the strawberry right here. This is the one I like. You put it in your workout shake. I have the plain one. I put it in my coffee. It actually goes pretty well. My teenage son is using it now. My wife tried it. She's loving it. My skin's better. My digestion is better. This, for me, is a game changer. And if you want to experience health and you want to experience transformation in your health, Field of Greens is your ticket. And they have a guarantee. If you go back to your doctor after using Field of Greens and your doctor does not notice an improvement in your health, there's a full money back guarantee. So go to fieldofgreens.com. You can see it right there. Also in the pinned comment and in the show notes. If you use my promo code, which is TM, you'll receive 15% off and free shipping. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend to my audience, fieldofgreens.com. Use that promo code TM. Also, link in the show notes and in the comment. All right, your comments, your questions coming at you. We got some super chats. I'll hit those up first. Always, GL, I don't know how to say. I want to say GLF Focus FL99. I'll just say GLF. Straight up spiritual war playing out in front of us all. Keep those rosaries working overtime. We are in the home stretch. Always, always pray every single day. I recommend people pray the rosary every single day. All right. I need to pray at least 20 minutes a day. I'm not good at praying on my own. My mind wanders. The rosary is something tangible. It's the Bible on beads. You go through 15 mysteries that are found in the Bible, and you're praying on those mysteries, and you can add your intentions into it. So the rosary really is the spiritual weapon of our time. So pray a rosary every day, or you're not on the team, and keep praying the rosary for the church and for the state. And if you're an American, keep on praying for the United States of America. Thank you, GLF. Appreciate you. TJ Bowman, the last few hundred years showed the superiority of theocracy, in my opinion. Yeah, I want to be careful about the term theocracy. So theocracy, properly understood, is ruled by God. And one could argue that perhaps in the early days of Israel, there was a theocracy because Moses was mediating the messages and the plan from God directly to the people. But by the time you get to King Saul, by the time you get to King David, certainly by the time you get to King Solomon and the division of the Old Testament kingdom of Israel, you really do have a religious monarchy. And in the history of Christendom, you've seen various forms of a Catholic monarchy. Sometimes they're better than others. You know, some people would hold up the Holy Roman Empire. Some people would hold up certain ages of France, like 13th century France under King Louis IX. But by the time you get to the Reformation, and this was already bubbling up in nominalism, Occam, Machiavelli, certain philosophers, theologians were postulating that the state is the ultimate power and that the church should not have power over the state. And when you hear that, you might have like an American reaction to that, but just say, should the state, who are believers in Jesus Christ, the leaders of the state, should they be submitted to the church? I believe the answer to that is yes. Now, there's different ways to parse that. Right. But we want our political leaders to be held accountable according to the 10 Commandments. I would even say in accordance with the New Testament, because a nation is really a family. It's the grouping together of many families. And so when you come together as a family, it's best if you're united under God. And everybody agrees on the Ten Commandments. Everybody agrees on the Sermon on the Mount. If you have that kind of society or that kind of a family, you're going to thrive. You know, if you have a household where one person's Muslim, one person's Jewish, one person's atheist, one person's Hindu, one person's Protestant, and one person's Catholic, there's going to naturally be more disagreement, more problems, and less unity in that house. I know that the Democrats are going to tell you that diversity is our greatest strength, but it's not. Everybody can see that. Nobody wants that, ultimately. It's a way to basically grind down the majority, which in the West has been white people and Christian culture. That's the goal here. Diversity is our greatest strength. Is not it. And if you really want to know, go to a prison where it's really, really difficult to live. And what happens? You start seeing people break down according to Christian, Muslim, atheist, Hispanic, Black, right? You want to be able to trust people, and you trust people because they have the same background as you, the same beliefs, the same presuppositions. All right, so diversity in eye color, skin color, hair color, right? And even diversity in places of birth, great. But when you start talking about your fundamental system of belief, right? Muslims have a very different understanding of women than Christians have of women. So saying, putting us 50-50, diversity is our greatest strength, that doesn't work. That's a lie, right? Now, if I'm on an island, right? And what would be the ideal for me if I was on an abandoned island? Well, I'd want everyone to be Christian, and devoutly so. And then I would want a diversity in skill sets, most definitely. You know, I'd want an engineer, I'd want a doctor or a nurse. You know, I'd want someone who has maybe an outdoorsman background, you know, someone who's a carpenter who can build, absolutely on that. But diversity when it comes to beliefs and morality, that gets a little dangerous. Thank you, TJ, for your super chat. Going over here to Anthony Iannone, hopefully I said that right. Thank you for your generous super chat. God bless Marshall, and we keep praying. Strength and honor. Amen. Here we go. It's Gulf Coast, Florida. Gulf Coast. Yeah, but there's no T there. All right, I'll try to remember. It's Gulf Coast. I wish you would have just wrote Gulf Coast, Florida. But we love you. Thank you for all your super chats. Gulf Coast, Florida. Excellent. All right, I'm heading back into the general comments, reactions, etc. Here's a nice one from Guys My Shepherd. I'm glad I found Dr. T. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Pray for California. Isn't that the truth? California, what a beautiful state. Every time I go to California, I was like, man, it'd be great to live here if it weren't for the politics. You know, just such a beautiful state. The climate, the weather, the beaches, the mountains, the redwoods. You know, San Francisco as a city is such a beautiful city. San Diego, beautiful city. You know, and I think part of the problem, here's my theory on why beautiful places become liberal. Ever since the 1950s and 60s, there is a subset of people who say, I'm going to live for me. I'm not going to contribute to society. I'm going to live for me. That means I may not get married. If I do get married, I'll be a dink. Dual income, no kids. Right? And this mentality also attracts people who are in unnatural unions. Those people have more disposable income, right? So my wife and I, we have 8 children, all right? I've written a lot of books. By the way, you can get some signed books over at patreon.com, right? I have income. I do well, but almost everything that I make, I write a book and it does well. I'm paying for the education, the clothes, the insurance, the gasoline, the private school tuition, all of that. I'm paying for that. And so my income gets radically distributed, not only through my taxes to other people's families, but to my own children. And you know what? I'm great with that, right? I have children. I want to invest in children. They're my legacy, right? I love that. But if I didn't have that, right? If I didn't have children, I have to worry about where they went to school, where they went to church. I didn't have to spend any money on it whatsoever. Well, then I would naturally move to one of the beautiful places because and I wouldn't care about the politics. And I think that's why over time, the really pretty places like in Colorado, Florida, all up and down the coast of California, those places get dominated by the culture of LMNOP, the culture of the A word, the culture of Marxism, liberalism, et cetera. And there's no family values there. I think it's just people have more disposable income and they choose to live in those beautiful places. Do you agree with me or disagree with me? That's been my thought. Fabian says, pray for your enemies. I pray Obama, Hillary, Joe, Kamala will repent, confess their sins in a confessional, ask for mercy and forgiveness from Jesus, and sin no more. Absolutely, yes. We as Christians, St. Paul said, pray for the king. Who was he talking about at that time? He was talking about Nero, the emperor of Rome. So even St. Paul said to pray for Nero, who was one of the most ungodly, degenerate emperors in the history of Rome. And what's interesting is Nero was the emperor who put Paul to death by beheading outside the gates of Rome. So Paul, who was murdered by Nero's command, even in the Bible says, pray for Nero, pray for the king. And he's referring there to the man who murdered him. Romance languages with Jane. I'm curious, Jane, is it romantic or is it romance languages like Spanish, French, Italian, etc.? Sending my guardian angel to give you a big hug, Dr. Taylor. Well, thank you. I receive it. Take a moment. Thank you. Stephanie Jimenez says, what is your message to Catholic laity that are voting for Kamala? Better question, what is my message to Catholic clergy who are voting for Kamala? Do you know anyone personally? I live in California, so there are some Catholics voting blue. I don't know any Catholics in my circle who are voting for Kamala. That means I've vetted my circle pretty good. I'm just kidding. I don't know. The only reason I could see people voting for Kamala is they're worried about somehow Trump making things economically more difficult. But I think if you look at his track record, it would actually help people in the lower and middle classes under a Trump administration. At least that's what we saw during Trump. And then during Biden, we saw it get more difficult. So just based on that, I think that's the only reason I would think people would vote that way. But when you look at the direction of the country, you look at moral questions, again, Trump is not perfect. Trump is not where I would want him to be by a long shot. Yeah, I just don't see how Catholics could really go there, especially if you say Jesus is Lord and she says, you're in the wrong rally. All right, well, peace out. Thanks for letting me know. Government Watchdog says, Colorado was once a solid conservative state. So sad. I know. Colorado used to just kind of be a cowboy country. And unfortunately, all the libs started moving there and they shifted it blue. Then they legalized Mary Jane. And then the place has just become worse. Sad to see. By the way, don't legalize drugs. Drugs are bad. All right. Oh my goodness, there's some spicy comments that I'm not gonna go over. I'll do one more. I have to head out to a funeral. If you could please pray for my friend Lisa. She died last week, a week ago. She has 12 children, I think 30-ish grandchildren, beautiful Catholic woman, died with last rites, apostolic pardon, her entire 12 kids praying the rosary around her as she died peacefully and went to her reward. So please pray for Lisa. I'd appreciate that. I'm going to bounce out, change into a black suit, and head to her solemn high requiem mass. I hope that's how I die, and I hope that's what I receive. All right. Last comment here is from Sharon Felton. She says, liberals always seem so angry. Yeah, I'd be angry too, because being liberal is a victim mentality. Everything wrong in my life is because the government. I'm going to be pretty angry if I believe that. I hopefully, usually live off the principle, if something's wrong in my life, it's my fault. I screwed up. Something's wrong in my family, I screwed up. I messed up. Hopefully those things can be fixed, but there's the older way of thinking is you can't change everything in the world. You can't change the government. You can vote or be politically active, but the best investment of your effort and your time is staring right back at you in the mirror. It's you. You need to make changes. And if you don't accept that, you believe that somehow, Kamala or Gavin Newsom or Beto or, just fill in the blank, a Clinton, Obama is somehow your daddy, and you're going to get checks in the mail, and you're going to have you're not going to have mental illness, and everything's going to go great for you. And that's not the experience. Anyone who relies on the government is going to be disappointed. So I think because governments think more like that, they're disappointed and they're unhappy. So what they should do is say, oh, let me look into self-accountability and transform myself from within. But they don't. They double down and say, we need more government, more government, more government, more redistribution, more interference. And they go from angry to sad to angry to sad, downward spiral. So that's my take on that. Make sure you're praying your rosary every single day. If you don't pray your rosary every day, you're not on the team. Find a traditional Latin Mass, Eastern Rite liturgy. Go to where the gospel is preached, where you hear truth, good catechism, good catechesis, where your children see devout liturgy, no Eucharistic abuse, no liturgical abuse, holy pastors, holy preachers. And remember, our Lord Jesus Christ says, you're the light of the world and the salt of the earth. So go out there and be salty. God bless. Godspeed. Click on those links for Field of Greens and also for the Wellness Company. And we'll see you in the next video. If you can, vote early.